Okay, here we go then. So I'm talking to Julian Barabas about everything dry. And Julian, I was so excited to find your club. Tell me, first of all, what is everything dry?
Yeah, so everythingdry.ca is a de-alcoholized wine and non-alcoholized wine club. So we provide shipping to people's front doors all over Canada. And we have either de-alcoholized wine, which is labeled as 0.5%, or non-alcoholic wine, which is literally 0%. And we also are launching a spirits club that is non-alcoholic as well, which is sort of in its infancy right now, but coming soon.
Now, why would people spend money on wine that doesn't have any alcohol? Where did that concept come from for you?
Yeah, so I mean, maybe I can start with kind of my sort of relationship with alcohol story. But I grew up in England. I went to a boarding school there, and alcohol was everywhere. Amazingly, my boarding school actually had a pub for students when they were 17 or 18. And so after rugby, we would go and drink beers there. Then I ended up at UBC and I actually joined a fraternity. I wasn't quite sure what a fraternity was, but it seemed similar to a boarding school where you could play rugby with people. And there was drinking every day of the week there. Wednesday beer gardens, Friday beer gardens, Saturday night parties and whatnot. Um, and I never really had a problem with alcohol. Luckily, for some reason, I was able to kind of decide when and when not to partake. But I definitely saw it around me, people who struggled. And then I moved to Victoria, and it kind of just kept going. Work hard during the week and drink on Friday nights and drink on Saturday nights, and it went on and on and on. And it was quite normalized, I think. And I used to DJ festivals and things like this, and there was a lot of drinking there as well. And quite recently, actually, just before 2020, I just kind of thought, I'm not really reaching my potential. I would like to see what it's like to do dry January. So my first dry January was in 2020. Of course, March hit, and we all know what happened in March 2020. And so I was like, wow, this is really good timing for me. I'm just going to keep going. So everything dry was really kind of a reaction, because what I found is I didn't even know about de-alkalized wine until recently, but I would go to the liquor store and I saw limited choices. And I also wondered why people who didn't want to drink had to go into a liquor store, which might have triggered them to buy these products. And the few products that were available in grocery stores were always the same ones. And so, I've started a number of businesses in my life, and it's usually when I have a problem that I want to solve or something like that. So I decided every Friday night, I would like a different bottle of wine. I'd like something different. I miss those celebrations. People in my family continue to drink, and we're celebrating various events. And I felt I wanted to be included in those celebrations. And so I started doing research, and I moved quickly. So I set up an importer license and started importing this de-alkalized wine from various countries. And I have e-commerce experience, and so I just thought, what a good opportunity to try and set up a wine club. And I'll just quickly add too that when I was in England, there's lots of traditional wine clubs, and so I would have family there who every quarter would get a big box of wine from, I think it was called the Wine Society or something like that. And so I thought I would model that, but with de-alcoholized and non-alcoholic wine, and it seems to be gaining traction, which is exciting.
I am not surprised at that, because I think what's our relationship with alcohol, our globally, our relationship with alcohol during COVID has really, I think, ramped up. People are drinking way more because they're stuck at home.
Yes.
And I was so excited when I found this, because like you, it's nice to pour a glass of wine, but you don't really need the alcohol. So maybe let's talk a little bit about how quickly are you seeing the growth of the demand for low alcohol and de-alcoholized wines?
Yeah, so I think it's still a niche market in the sense that perhaps, especially because I live in Victoria, which is a small town compared to, London, England or something, or New York. So if I was to set up maybe a physical store in Victoria downtown, I don't necessarily think I'd have a lot of people coming in or enough people to sustain it. But again, our agency has experience with Google ads and Facebook ads, and you can really target people who are looking for specific things. And so in that sense, there's a massive online community I've discovered of the sort of sober life or the sober lifestyle culture. And it seems, the millennials are really pushing it, and the older generations are deciding it's a good idea sometimes. And of course, there's always people with health issues or pregnancies or whatnot. So finding people online is relatively easy, but maybe less so if I was looking in my own neighborhood.
Right, right. So let's talk a little bit about the wines. You touched on this a little bit earlier on, that when you go to the grocery store and you find, we won't name names, but you
Yeah,
look at those wines, they are dreadful. I mean, that's
yeah,
no wonder they cost $6, because they taste like watered down pancake syrup.
yeah,
So you've managed to source some fairly decent tasting wines that are low in alcohol. So where are you finding them? Who's making these
yeah.
wines?
So again, we launched on October the 1st of 2020. So we're a very young company, basically 3 months in. So yeah, Australia, we haven't actually imported from Australia yet, but I see online there's a strong non-alcoholic wine culture there. But France, Spain, and Italy all have strong representation in these product areas. Locally, when I talk about spirits, there's a local company here called Lumet that was basically a spin-off from a traditional distillery. And so, there's definitely some local non-alcoholic gin, for example. Lumet is an example. In the States, there's a lot of non-alcoholic spirits. I'm finding it a little harder to import those for some reason. But just because it's hard the first time doesn't mean I won't succeed. Yeah, and also in the UK, now that I'm looking online, there's a big growing list of providers there as well. But you really have to, it's quite expensive to ship pallets from the UK to here. So there's a balancing act here of, providing an affordable option versus something that's maybe not so affordable, right? So again, we're sort of 3 months in, so we're learning a lot, but we already have quite a good kind of quiver of selections. So I'm excited.
Well, I am so proud of myself for being one of the early adopters. I must have found you just after you launched, and I
Yeah,
was really excited about that. As you say, for dry January, it's a perfect solution, and just for anybody who wants to still participate in pouring a glass of wine, but not having to drink an alcoholic wine. You and I have talked a little bit, or at least exchanged emails a little bit, about this huge initiative in New Zealand. Some of the most foremost wineries in the Marlborough region are all putting out now these low alcohol, no alcohol, including Gießen and Stoneleigh and some of the real big names. But I
exactly.
haven't seen any of those in Canada. Is it because of the shipping costs, or is it just they're not producing in bulk?
To be honest, I'm still learning. So there's the research I've done is traditionally it's kind of producers, distributors, and then retailers, kind of a three-tier system. And so it's still a sort of unknown for me, but some producers only go through distributors, whereas some seem more lenient for whatever reason to go directly to a retail, such as e-commerce retail. So it's kind of like trial by error. So it's sort of to be decided. But yeah, I would imagine that the reason that some of the local distributors don't have Australia or New Zealand is the cost and the distance. I think. Um, from what I've learned about the techniques, so again, I'm still learning here, quick and fast here, but my understanding is in the 80s, they didn't have quite the good technology. So some of the new technology they have is centrifuge. So they're using a centrifuge system to dealcoholize. And then also a vacuum, basically a vacuum system or a combination of both. So using a vacuum, you can boil liquids at a much lower temperature. So they're able to boil off the alcohol, but it's not what you think of as a kettle boiling. It's at a much, much lower temperature. So it doesn't damage the rest of the wine, right? So there's definitely new techniques being adopted and whatnot. And I'm also, our focus initially is the wine. There's a whole nother segment, of course, maybe for another day, which is beers and whatnot.
Mhm.
So so I'm definitely watching that space. It's a heavier product, you know, but I'm also very interested in these sort of fringe beverages too. So I'm seeing sparkling teas, and again, different types of spirits. So we've just got some vermouth replacements shipped in. We have rum replacement shipped in, and there's one more. Oh, a whiskey. We have a whiskey replacement shipped in. So we're hopefully in the next 30 to 60 days we'll launch the Spirits Club, and that'll have those sorts of options too, which is a whiskey replacement, gin replacement, vermouth replacement. So yeah, we're excited to try that. So yeah, my Friday nights usually start with, you know, maybe a fake gin cocktail, a Lumet cocktail, for example, and then I'll open a bottle of wine, and it's just so nice to have these choices now. I don't get bored, and you know, I really go hard on the lime, the fresh lime, and other elements to really level it up a bit, and it seems to be working great. Like, I truly don't miss the celebration, I don't miss the flavors, and I really am waking up with a lot more energy every day. And you know, I run 3 businesses and I need that energy. There's no time to be hungover anymore, I've decided. So
Yeah, we're too old for that, too old for
yeah,
hangovers.
exactly.
So Julian, I'm just going to put you on the spot and give you under a 1 minute pitch. Obviously, there's all these benefits to not having to consume alcohol all the time. What's your pitch to people to join the Everything Dry Club as a way of accessing those products?
Yeah, so again, it's variety, right? So we're going to do our best to provide as much variety as we can. So we already have reds, we have whites, we have sparkling. As I said, we have some spirits coming along, and so it's just that kind of, I see it as a reward almost. It's like you're doing something, in my opinion, that's noble, which is, you know, trying to better yourself in the sense that, at least from my perspective, I want to reach my full potential. And I felt that alcohol was holding me back. Like, everyone has different reasons here. It could be some people are medical, some people are pregnant, but just my experience is I want to reach my full potential. I don't feel alcohol was helping me do that. And so I like the idea that every month I get a new bottle of wine as a sort of reminder and a reward of the effort I'm putting in to chart a new path, maybe. At least that's my path.
Julian, thank you so much. It has been delightful talking to you in person, and I'm so glad I found you, and I wish you all the very best, and I'll be looking forward to all of my shipments that come very nicely packaged, courtesy of Canada Post. So thank you so much for doing this and for talking to me today.
Well, it's nice to meet you, and I appreciate your support. So thank you.
Thank you.